My name is Keith, and from the time I was about 4 years old, I was interested in being a part of the entertainment business. And I've done many things throughout that time, from singing in bands, writing music, hosting television shows, everything involved in the professional wrestling business. And I've written comic books, done a lot of things, and almost all of those things failed in some way or another. But I still kept going, and I still wanted to continue to create. And there's just something in me that drives me to create. And I started thinking, what is it that drives anyone to create? And that's going to be the point of this podcast. We're going to talk to people from all aspects of the entertainment industry. We're going to find out what made them interested in creating art, and why, when faced with success, when faced with failure, the ups and downs of life and life in the entertainment business, they continue to create. So, and hopefully we'll have some good and interesting conversations along the way that you'll be interested in hearing. So tune in to the Most Excellent Entertainment Podcast.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Most Excellent Entertainment Podcast, and I'm your host, Keith, and tonight we have with us the Master of Mayhem, rock star extraordinaire, Mickey Magnum.
How y'all doing out there tonight? I'm Mickey Magnum, the Master of Mayhem, and well, I'm here for your viewing and listening pleasure tonight. Sometimes just listening pleasure, but sometimes viewing and listening. But if you're going to pleasure yourself, please do that in private.
Indeed. Yeah, we do a little bit of both here. Not the pleasuring yourself, but the listening and viewing. How's it going, brother?
Real good, real good. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm having a blast. This podcast thing is working out, so far anyway.
Yeah, I like podcasts. Generally, I didn't think that I would like them, and initially I thought, man, I don't know if I like this type of stuff. But I started listening to some. Well, so you're a big wrestling guy, right, Keith?
Yeah.
To a degree, right? And I am too.
Absolutely. I mean, I've promoted shows for years, and I've been a fan since I was 4. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, man. And me too. So I like, one thing that really kind of got me hooked on podcasts. It wasn't even Joe Rogan. It actually was like pro wrestling shoot interview podcast type things.
Man,
I love them. Yeah. I absolutely love them.
I ate up the shoot interviews when they were first coming out. I was all over those things. And then for a while, I started getting into the comedy podcasts, because a lot of different comedians, just like Chris D'Elia. He's kind of a touchy subject now, but his podcast was hilarious.
Sure.
And then lately, I've been getting into a lot of music podcasts. Oh, and I went through a rabbit hole where, like, the sitcom people from the 90s go back and watch their shows and then talk about what they remember from the shows, like Full House and Saved by the Bell, and the kids from that Nickelodeon show.
What was going on, like, so during the filming of it or whatever, like all the behind the scenes stuff that you never really know.
So, like, what their relationships were like while they were filming them, and Boy Meets World. Boy Meets World was the first one.
Sure.
Yeah, because Daniel Fishel. Actually, it's all of them except Ben Savick. So it's all the people who were on that show, and that was really interesting. And I liked Boy Meets World when I was a kid, so it's kind of like, why not check it out? So yeah, but yeah, and I used to host TV shows back in the day. I interviewed people and stuff, and it just got me like, I want to do this. I want to see what I can contribute to this whole thing. So
yeah, and I think it's a really interesting way to find out the behind the scenes workings of bands or whatever genre or profession these people are doing, and find out who those individuals really are as a person, because sometimes their character and the person maybe doesn't intersect as much as you think.
Absolutely. Well, and then this is the thing too. I don't want to regurgitate this every single podcast, but at the same time, I feel like it's information that kind of helps the guest get where I'm coming from. So, like we touched on a little bit, I did pro wrestling stuff for a long time. Um, Other than that, I've also, hosted television shows, produced television shows, and I was in bands. I've written probably 300 songs. Um, None of it has been extremely successful, but I still want to keep creating. Like no matter what, I just can't stop. Like there's just something in me.
And define successful, Keith. Like, what if one of your songs, even though let's say it's not commercially successful, what if one of your songs was somebody's favorite song that they ever heard?
That'd be so killer.
And made their life better, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, like, I don't know. Success is such a difficult thing to quantify because, like, you have commercial success, you have financial success. Who's the greatest band? Well, who the hell knows, right? Like, the greatest band could be never discovered. They could be popular only locally, and they just don't have the reach of big bands and a marketing machine behind them to get this music to the world. And maybe that's one thing that the internet has provided us a little, is a platform to reach more people, but that also provided everybody with the same platform. So it's kind of difficult to
it's hard.
All that noise.
Yeah. It's like, when we were kids, you'd hear a song on the radio, and if it was a song that they wanted you to hear, you'd hear it 8-10 times a day. And then that song would get stuck in your head and you would go search for it.
Right.
But now it's like you have to know what kind of music you're looking for. I mean, or, the targeted Facebook ads, like I came across you through a Facebook ad. I believe the video was live in the ad. And
really?
I think the video was live in the ad. If not, clicked on it and watched a live performance on YouTube.
Man, was that around, like, because I did a bunch of Go Live stuff. Maybe during COVID and shortly thereafter.
It was right after COVID. Like,
so it could have been that.
Like it could have been going on when we talked the first time.
And I did really wild things during COVID, and I still do to this day. I've had really kind of bizarre. I'll tell you more about the really bizarre. Like, probably the most bizarre thing I ever did for marketing is I have a friend who's an over-the-road truck driver that drives coast to coast.
Okay.
And I just sent him with physical boxes, like hundreds of physical copies of CDs, and asked him to just leave them at gas stations or with every single person that he stops. And like, hey, I'm going to drop off like however many pallets of whatever here.
Yeah.
Give them to these people and just drop these things off everywhere, man. It's like throwing a fishing pole in the water everywhere you go. And I don't even have to leave town to do it.
Right. When I lived in Indianapolis, you would come across CDs just sitting on counters. Yeah. Like, that's not unheard of. You know what I mean? Like, I found a CD in a tattoo shop once that was just sitting on the counter. I was like, what is this? They were like, oh, one of our guys. He also makes music. He just left it on the counter. And I was like, cool. And there was a comic book shop type place, and they always had some CDs on their counter that people would just drop off. And so, yeah, I mean, it's one thing, but yeah, I remember the live video. Just you sounded so good.
Oh, thanks, man.
You're welcome. I was just like, I gotta check these guys out. So I hit the little more information, and then we talked for a while, and I ordered your second CD, and you sent me your first one for free.
Yeah.
Which is freaking awesome. Thank you. So that was really cool, man. And and that's kind of how I got into the whole Mickey Magnum fandom. And you're and you're a cool guy, dude. We've had a couple really good conversations, man. So
I like to do really cool things for people. When I was a kid, like, I always wanted somebody to do something really cool to me. Like I wanted to get a letter from Axl Rose or from James Hetfield or some, or maybe just hope their tour bus would break down. And I lived in the middle of a swamp in the middle of nowhere. There's no reason this tour bus would be anywhere ever going down some back road in the middle of nowhere, right?
Right.
But in my mind, I'm like, oh man, it would be just so cool if somebody I thought was cool would write a letter to me or send me something in the mail. And I thought about that a lot. And as I got into martial arts and other things, boxing was kind of a thing too. And I thought about Muhammad Ali, and I think he was a big fan of like Sugar Ray Robinson, and he wanted to know him, and he waited outside. He waited outside this restaurant or something. I can't remember if it was down in Louisville or he waited outside just to see him so he could talk to him. And when he finally did see him, he ignored him. And, the kid talked to him, made a big deal about it, and that's kid Ali. And Ali, like, that's why I think he became larger than life, is he wanted the fans to connect with him. He'd talk a lot of trash and promote fights, but man, he did stuff for kids. It just, the things that guy did, it was unbelievable. But he did that through this feeling of not wanting to make people feel lesser. When they make a big deal about you, you have like a certain amount of responsibility to treat those people with respect and be like, hey, I'm somebody to these people. I'm important to them. Let's make them important to me.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, honestly, like I've come across a lot of famous people. I'm not really sure how, but I've met quite a few over the years, and everyone who I've met has been really cool. So that's been great. Ric Flair wasn't so cool, but everybody else is really cool. I mean, I've met Ric Flair.
How sober was Ric Flair when you met him exactly?
Well, nobody was sober because he was wrestling that night. But it was really anything. But I met him at a show in Syracuse, and he was wrestling Terry Funk that night. But
oh wow,
yeah. So Sting was wrestling Great Muta, and he was in the entranceway watching the match. Well, it wasn't really the entranceway. It was like where you would enter the bleachers to sit down. And I walked over to him and I was like, wow, you're Ric Flair. That's what I said.
Yeah.
Goes, could you move out of my way? I'm trying to watch Sting wrestle. And I was like, sure. I was 16, not even. I was 15.
Man, dude.
I was just like, okay.
And I think about that all the time too. Like, you got to think about it like this. Every single time you have an interaction with somebody, it might be your only interaction with that person, and that might be their only memory of you ever.
Yeah. Whenever I see Ric Flair, that's what I think of. How he asked me to move instead of like taking a couple minutes. But
oh man, and I'll tell you, dude, there's been times where I've worked a 12-hour day and then drove an hour and a half or 2 or 3 hours, set up a whole merch table, done all this stuff, went and played a show, and I just didn't really feel like talking to anybody after that, after about 19 or 20 hours. But you know what? Because of those type of things, man, even if I'm tired, I will sit there and do whatever it takes because you have to. Because that could be how people remember you forever. And I just I don't want anybody to remember me like, that guy told me, to take a hike, or he didn't have no time for me. And like, he was important to me. Like, I loved his music, or I thought he was somebody who was cool. And when I met him, he's a disappointment. Like, man, I don't want to be like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're going to get to the meat of the podcast in a minute, but now that we're talking about stuff like this has got me just one more story, man.
Sure.
So I saw 7 Mary 3.
Yep.
And it was actually in Milwaukee. It was right after I moved there. It was 7 Mary 3, and Brian Van something. He used to sing for he used to sing for the Verve Pipe, and he did the vocals for the Rockstar movie.
Sure.
Yeah, he opened, but and no one knew who he was because it was like him and his acoustic guitar until he played the Freshman, and then everyone was like, "Oh, it's the Verve Pipe guy."
Oh yeah, sure. They didn't connect the dots, right?
Yeah. But 783, man, I love that band. I've been into them for a long time, so I was like freaking losing it out there, man. I was sweating. I think I took my shirt off. I was, and then afterwards, Jason, the singer, Jason Ross, was having a beer at the bar, and I just wanted to walk up to him and ask him how he was doing. So I went up to him. I was like, "Hey, man, how you doing? Great show." And he goes, "How are you doing, man?" He was like, "I saw you out there, and stuff like that's what keeps us going." And I was just like, "Dude." Like, and that felt so good to like he saw me out there sweating in the crowd. Like, geez, it's insane. Like, it's just great. So
yeah, and that's something that you always remember, right? Like, and that dude didn't. I think you probably know this because you've interviewed a lot of people and talked to a lot of people that have been around and done stuff. Like, I don't really care to talk about myself that much or go on. Like, when you get out around, I want to hear about like the people that are interested in our music, like what their families were like, or what do they got going on in life, or what's good, or what's this, or what made you really happy, or which song you like. I want to hear about that. I really don't want to spend that much time talking about myself because, like, to me, well, that's just me, right? Like, I want to hear about these people and what did they like, or how do they live?
yeah, it's always cool to hear like also how the stuff that you do affects other people.
Sure.
Because you hope that you're making a connection in some way or another. So that's. But I don't think about that when I'm like meeting the singer for 783. It's like, what no I was doing. Like, that was cool, man. So
some of these dudes got like super good memories too, and like
yeah.
they'll meet their fans and like not see them for 3 or 4 years or something, and then like they'll see him again at a VIP meet and greet or something. Oh yeah, hey, wait a minute, I remember you. You're the guy that had the dog that passed away 3 years ago. Like, are you doing okay? And they'll be like, dude, that was that one show like 3 years ago. How do you remember that?
Yeah, that's
some
awesome.
of these dudes remember that stuff, man, and that is really, really cool.
Yeah. I saw Dramarama play on their last tour before they broke up the first time, and after everything got over with, John Easdale came off the crowd and came back out into the crowd, and was just meeting people a little bit here and there. And I said, we talked for a second, and then he said, thanks for coming, Keith. And I had introduced myself to him at the beginning of the night, like probably 5 or 6 o'clock. And this was 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. And he said, thanks for coming, Keith. 12 hours later, he still remembered my name.
That's impressive.
Went
out, did a whole show, did all this stuff, talked to all these people, oh yeah, hey, Keith, thanks for coming out. Like, what?
Crazy, dude. Crazy. And I said, thanks for playing, John. And he said, they're my favorite band, man. And he was just, he was everything that I wanted him to be. Honestly, when I met him, he was so cool.
Man, that is awesome when people like don't disappoint you. I don't think I've ever really been disappointed by like a lot of people. Maybe once in a while you will be. But most of the time, I would say, as a general rule of thumb, I've usually been pretty, pleasantly surprised that people were just as cool as I thought they were supposed to be at my time,
Yeah, absolutely. Thankfully, I've never met Gene Simmons or Paul Stanley. But I'm prepared if I ever do.
That's right.
I know it's not going to be the warmest interaction.
Well, and one thing you cannot deny is that the Demon is a amazing marketing machine. He found a way to wring every last dollar out of rock and roll somehow.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did.
You can't beat him for that. I mean, he sold Kiss coffins, like Kiss soda pop. I mean, he was on Scooby Doo. Like,
right. I mean, that's my thing too. I wonder if I was Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons, two like nerdy Jewish boys from New York who were, not necessarily treated all that well when they were kids because they were, whatever. Paul had a missing ear. If I would act like that, maybe, and they created this gigantic thing.
Right. Juggernaut, dude.
You know what I mean? I mean,
Right.
I guess you can give them ego. So,
Well, and what's like it? I mean, you think about what they did in the 70s with that makeup and stuff. Like,
right.
they pushed that. I mean, it's the old corpse paint style, like black metal thing.
Right.
But I mean, they did something that people never really, and at least for the mainstream, had seen anything like.
It never happened before. Yeah. I mean, there was Alice Cooper, but Kiss is like a whole nother,
It's a different type of thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a show. Like it's
different style of music. They got some good theatrics. A little bit of stuff with the blood, like Alice Cooper's a little more theatric too, but similar type of thing for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, man. So I feel like we kind of touched on this, but let's get into it a little more. Like, what made you decide to create music?
Oh God, dude. I had no interest in being a musician ever.
Okay.
I had no musical background, no musical family members, never wanted to do I liked music. I liked to listen and enjoy it, but I never ever, like, if you would have asked me when I was a kid, like, hey dude, do you think someday you'll ever like write and record songs and be a singer in a band? I'd have laughed at you. Why the hell would I do that? But that'll never be something that I do. Wrong. Wrong. But as we do in life, right?
Yeah.
Where you wind up and what you think, I don't know. I guess maybe not everybody, but at least for most of the people I know, like where they ended up and what they thought they were going to do versus what they wound up doing in reality, it wasn't the same thing. There's always some people like, I knew I wanted to be a musician or a pro wrestler or a boxer or something, and that's all that they knew it right away, and that's what they wanted to do. So they just found their way earlier, and I didn't.
Yeah.
So how did I get to music? I got my way to music through combat sports.
Okay. Interesting.
I didn't want to be a musician. I got bullied a lot when I was a kid, so I got really good at fighting.
Okay.
That was something I was good at because I figured out probably through elementary school and middle school, junior high, that if people were trying to bully me, if I just fought them, they'd leave me alone. And pretty soon I'd just start beating up bullies until I had a reputation where they wouldn't bother me anymore. Like, I'm not messing with this kid, dude. He broke my nose, or he's too much trouble. So I'm going to leave him alone. Right. And so that was kind of my thing, but I didn't really think that was a useful talent either until later. Like I sat around and I don't know, from the bullying thing, I kind of just got myself in a spot where I felt like I just needed to drink a lot and feel sorry for myself, and I didn't really go anywhere for a while. And then I met a friend of mine, and I went to Costa Rica, and I went down there, and these dudes tried to rob us, and I went through these guys like the Terminator. Right. But to me, it was just another pair of high school bullies that were trying to take things or hurt me, and I'm like, well, you're gonna burn, dude. And so I put a torch to those guys, and he's like, dude, you're like the Terminator. Like, you ever think about doing this stuff and like getting paid? I'm like, hey, I don't know. And where I came from, like, that was never even a consideration. So I came back, and I had this dude that was a Dane County sheriff that offered to train me, but he worked opposite shifts. We introduced me to another guy named Damien, the coroner, Decorah. And I trained under him for a long time and had a bunch of fights and did that. And that was something that was fun. But the problem is I worked for an electric utility at that time too. And I was the foreman at the utility. So I have to go out and interact with the general public. Right. And so some of these fights that I did were like tournament style weekends thing where you'd fight maybe once or twice Friday night. And like if you won, you'd fight again. And then you might fight 2 more times Saturday. So you might have like 3 or 4 fights in one weekend, like the old school UFC style. So I'd come to work on Monday and yeah, my eye might be swelled a little bit shut, or both of them, or my nose might be a little smashed because guess what? I don't care how good you are. When you fight 2 or 3 or 4 times in a weekend, you're going to get hit.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's when the HR director kind of wheeled me in the office. He's like, Mickey, listen, man, listen. I know that you do this stuff and this is a sport, but like, and I know I can't ask you this, but you gotta stop this stuff. Like people are calling down here, like we're supposed to be putting services in like to these multi-million-dollar buildings, you know, for a pharmaceutical company or something that's coming in. I'm standing out there talking to the owner about putting this transformer in. My eyes swelled shut, you know, and they don't understand, you know, like they think, oh, this guy's eyes, like he must be an obnoxious drunk, like
you're
just not an athlete, right?
Right.
You know. So they put the pressure on me a little bit, and you know, just like pro wrestling, when you're starting out at the bottom, fighting don't pay a lot of money.
Yeah.
You know, it ain't paying your bills. And working at the electric company was a good paying job. It had a retirement and all that other stuff. So I was like, well, what am I going to do? So I went up to the high school to give a scholarship on behalf of the electric utility.
Yeah.
And I saw this kid come walking out, and he played like Eddie Van Halen Eruption and a bunch of other guitar solo stuff for the class night. Nice. And I watched like 200, 300 people in that auditorium and like jump up. And they were like, yeah, you know, and I'm like, man, that's the same electric feeling that I got when I would walk down the aisles, you know, and the place is packed and you're going to go down and get at it, right? So I'm like, in my mind, I thought, son of a bitch, this could be my next vehicle, right? If I can't go do fighting, I'll go do this thing. I'll play in a band. So I look at the program because I read all the electric meters in town too. So I knew everybody's name and where everybody lived because I had to walk house to house to house, write all the readings down and all that jazz. So this is before drive-by metering. So I knew where everybody lives. So I look at the kid's name. I'm like, oh yeah, I know where he lives. He lives up in Palmer Heights. The next day, boom, 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 like Jay and Silent Bob, I'm at your door. Yo, man, is Matt around?
That's awesome.
That's kind of how it started. Is I started off being a guitar player, playing rhythm guitar in a band, and after that, 5 months, 6 months, man, I started off practicing for an hour, and I'd get blisters and stuff, and built up, and pretty soon I was practicing 3 to 4 hours a day, and finally, I'd come back, and Matt was like, "Damn, dude! Like every time you come back, you already know all the stuff that you're supposed to know from the previous week, and you've learned 2 or 3 other things." On your own, like, how are you doing it? I'm like, because I'm just trying really hard, dude.
Yeah.
So I'm like, dude, we need to start a band. And he's like, you think so? I'm like, oh yeah, let's do it. So that's what we did. And I still didn't sing in that band. I sang one song. I sang the song by Better and Ezra called Good, which is kind of like a one-hit wonder band from the 90s.
I love that song. Yeah.
I think it's a great song. It's fun.
Yeah.
So I did the cover band thing for a while, and then I was married, and my wife did not like my musical career. Yeah. And she told me if I wanted to start a family that I'd need to like move out of that. Well, we wound up getting divorced anyways. Right. And I didn't wind up with a family. Yeah. So after I got divorced, I called my old band members up, some of the guys from the cover band. And I'm like, guys, listen, man, I want to be an original artist. I want to be a musician. I want to write songs. And I want to come back as like my own thing, though. I don't want to be a human jukebox that's like playing these songs. I want to be original band only. We'll write our songs, record them, and go be who we are. And that's what we did. And that's how Mickey Magnum was born.
Awesome. And so once Mickey Magnum got going, I mean, obviously you guys have a reputation for being a pretty pretty awesome live band.
Yeah.
And then you ended up putting out 3 different CDs. And I think in the beginning, you were sort of like a blues based, sort of hard rock band, but then as the albums progress, they progressively get heavier and the music gets a little more complicated, but at the same time, it seems like it got catchier. Like, what do you attribute that progression to? Like,
well, I would attribute that progression to a couple of different things. The original band was supposed to be, the plan was supposed to be, we were going to be a blues rock band. And that's why the first album has harmonica and like all that. That was where I was hoping this band would go, is we were going to be a blues rock band along the lines of Johnny Winter, maybe a little bit of the Doors and Deep Purple and those type of things. Paul Butterfield blues band, like it's a combination of those things, amalgamation of them.
Yeah.
But that's not how it happened. As with all things in life, right? Like this was the intentions. Well, where did we wind up?
Yeah.
So we released our first album and went out and started to play a little bit. And then the harmonica player decided he wanted to leave the band. Well, up here in Wisconsin, unlike down in the Mississippi Delta and Alabama and down in the Gulf Coast Southwest, or Southeast, excuse me, you could probably get a harmonica player down there.
Right.
But around here, good luck.
Yeah.
So we were sitting there, we're like, well, what are we going to do? So we wound up starting to turn into a rock because we didn't have the harmonica anymore. We added another guitar player and we became more of a hard rock band.
Yeah.
Because that's the personnel that we had to perform. See, we never thought, like, the band never really thought about the recording part of this as the only thing. Like, we needed to be able to produce the stuff live in our minds.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why our recordings are kind of minimalist, right?
Right.
If you really look at like how our albums were produced, like the first album is super minimalist, right? Yeah. And even the second and the third one are still very minimalist. Like the most guitar tracks you'll probably find on there is like 3 or 4 guitar tracks on the most complicated songs.
Right.
You know, you have a rhythm track, you're going to have a first lead track, and then maybe a second lead track on the most complicated ones for some little side licks or something like that, or maybe a second rip. That's it. And vocally, like, I don't do anything weird vocally with like multiple layers of tracks. Like, I have a few spots where I double or triple stuff. Yeah. Otherwise, the majority of vocal effects I have are reverb or delay. That's it. Like, so everything, you know, the bass tracks are just one track. The drum tracks are all the individual drum. Like, there's nothing wild about it.
Yeah.
But that's why we're a good live band, see? Because guess what? We can show up and play. And we're just using wedge monitors. We don't have any in-ear monitors. Like, we don't have any of this technology or tracks to screw up and go wrong.
Right.
We just play the songs. And that's what tears people up. Because, like, dude, that's just you guys playing the music. Right, dude? And that's why it works. Because it's simple. It's direct. We know what we're supposed to do when you do it. I don't have all this crap. The more stuff you got to go wrong, more stuff that'll go wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, honestly, that was one of the things that really drew me to you guys. Like, once I listened to the CDs, like, I like music that has space. There's so much. It just sounds alive. Like, it just sounds. There's space there. You can hear and feel the music. You know,
It's not overproduced.
You probably understand what I'm saying because you're a musician, so you probably get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not overproduced, Keith. That's the problem with a lot of this music.
Like a breathing, living thing, you know, and that's what you guys sound like. So, yeah.
A lot of the new music is overproduced. They have too many tracks, and I think the music starts to lose its authenticity a bit.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because music really isn't all about notes, at least to me. It's about feeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, for me, the prime example of that is my love for the original Kill 'Em All by Metallica. It's one of my favorite albums. And then I've heard people discuss it like, oh, well, it's not in time, or it's not this, or it's not that.
Man.
I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I love about it is that it's brutal and pure and raw. And it's not overdone. It's a snapshot of exactly who those guys are authentically at that exact moment in time. And no bullshit polishing that, oh, make this bullshit that. Nah, it's real. And that's why that album kicks ass.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I always think about like a band like the Rolling Stones.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to downplay the Rolling Stones, but no one in that band is like an amazing musician. They're all kind of sloppy and but they sound incredible.
Right.
You know, I mean, Mick Jagger's voice just sounds great.
Because it's simple and effective, right? Same with AC/DC. Like you look at their music, like, oh wow, like are you going to blow your mind with the chord progressions they're doing? No,
right.
But it's simple, it's catchy, it's fun, and it's got good feeling.
Yeah,
and that's why it works, man.
Absolutely. Have you heard the Four on the Floor out of Minnesota?
No.
Okay, so it's four guys, right? And they play all four of them play a kick drum.
Wow.
Yeah. And of course there's a guitar player and a bass player and a drummer with a full kit, but they all play a kick drum, and that's the main rhythm of all their songs.
Wow, dude.
It's so cool, man. It's so simple and bluesy, and like it's a stomp.
Damn, I gotta go look them up because they're like Minnesota's not that far away from here. I'm embarrassed that I don't know them now. Like,
I mean, I thought maybe with them being in Minnesota, you might.
Oh, for sure. Like I should know them. I like I said, I'm embarrassed I don't know them. But so that's cool because guess what? I'll get to know them, and they're not far away, so I can go see them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, check them out.
That's part of the great adventure.
They got songs about drinking and blues, and good fun band, man. Hanging out with your friends. I mean, they're great band.
Fun music.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah.
So you guys, you and the Mayhem, right? Just played the Bratfest.
Yeah.
Yeah. How was that?
The Mayhem is a new band. That's a solo project I started. I'm going to kind of try to start moving some of my stuff back to the original blues rock thing. I have an original song that I wrote called Center Stage, and I'll email it over to you when we get done here tonight, so you can listen to it. We played it live for the first time at the Bratfest show. Yeah. We actually had to move Bratfest for us down to Main Street Music, my buddy's music venue, because we had such inclement weather Friday and Sunday that actually it rained out all the stages. So they had to move what they wound up doing is moving the national tour tier bands inside the Alliant Energy Center in Madison, which they'd never done in 40 years or 30 years of having that festival. Wow. So that's how bad the weather was. But the problem is that they had to cancel 3 open air live stages then. And well, those bands are guaranteed. So guess what? You're playing, buddy.
Gotta find somewhere to play. Yeah.
So they played inside, but I was thinking we were going to get rained out and we would lose our stage, which unfortunately did happen. But I called my buddy up that runs a music venue, Mr. Mason Meyer, also another great outlaw country musician from Wisconsin. And I'm like, Mason, like, I think we're going to get rained out, bro. What are we going to do? Can we come down and play? He's like, yeah, I don't have no shows at the venue because we didn't want to compete with Bratfest. And I'm like, dude, I almost died. Like, I need to get out and play with this band. I need to do this. And he's like, I know you do. And that's why we're going to come down here and do this. So we did. And man, I played that new song, dude. And Keith, I'll tell you, I never experienced anything like this in the world in my lifetime of performing.
Yeah.
Played that song for the public the first time, and I looked out in the audience and I saw like 8 or 9 people crying and holding each other, and they had never heard that song in their life. And that, like, it hit me. I was partway through the first verse and getting ready into the second when I saw these people starting to like break down emotionally. And I found myself at the point where I was going to start breaking down emotionally. I'm like, oh my God, dude, I'm going to start crying here. I'm going to embarrass myself. Like, I'm going to botch this performance now because I can't even contain myself looking at these people.
Yeah.
So I stared up into the stage lights that were like pointing back. And what I didn't know, and one of the ladies in my fitness class told me, is like, oh yeah, if you look up, like you can't cry. Like there's some sort of physiological thing or something. I didn't know that. She was just telling me. I don't know if it's true, but I'm like, I was just looking into the light to try to find something to focus on, but I just so happened to be looking up in the air and staring at him like, can't cry, dude. Gotta stay focused. Gotta go. Can't fumble this now, man. These people are on, you know?
Yeah.
And that changed my life forever. And I'll never forget it. So
That's
for
so
me,
cool.
I mean, to move people like that, because you know a song is good when you see people, when you play it for them and they get like goosebumps, right?
Yeah.
Skin don't lie, dude. Or if they start crying or if they stop what they're doing and look,
right,
you know, that's a really good song.
Yeah, for sure, man.
So I'm really excited about that and doing some more stuff with the Mayhem band. Originally, that was what the band was supposed to be.
Yeah.
When we started out on this journey,
yeah,
I wanted the band originally to be Mickey Magnum and the Mayhem.
Right.
But the guys didn't want to be the Mayhem, so we just became Mickey Magnum.
Right.
And then I became Mickey.
Right. Right.
The guy with the glasses and the bowler hat and the Chuck Taylors.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And then as time went on, I became the Master of Mayhem, which it just sounds cool.
Yeah. You do it well, man. So.
Yeah, it's fun, you know. It's like it's got. Yeah. I think that's the thing that's kind of missing right now in rock and roll is. That's one thing I loved about Guns N' Roses. That Guns N' Roses was one of my favorite rock bands, and between AC/DC and Guns N' Roses are probably my number 1 or number 2 personally.
Yeah.
For rock bands.
Yeah.
But one thing I liked about Axl Rose, I mean, he stirred up a lot of controversy and did things that maybe I really wouldn't do for my career.
Sure. Yeah.
But the things, and I don't like the tardiness, like being late. Like I'm not into that. Like our shows will always go on time forever. But one thing that I did like about him was he wanted to make rock and roll dangerous. You know, the most dangerous band in the world, right?
Yeah.
And that's what adds an air of excitement to rock and roll. Because you don't know, I don't want people to know what I want to just go watch this guy to see what the hell he's going to do because you just don't know.
Right.
Unpredictable. And that's fun.
That is fun. Very cool, man. Yeah, that story, man. Jeez. That's awesome. So cool.
Oh man, it's so overwhelming too. Like I had that really nasty cancer diagnosis before we opened for Great White. Like the week of that show, I got that diagnosis on Wednesday that I might be terminally ill. And man, you should have seen the look on that doctor's face. Oh Lord, man. He came in and he's the surgeon. He's like, well, so what we're going to do is we're going to do this and we're going to do this. And we're going to do that. I wanted to hear about it myself. And he seemed like he was having the time of his life. So I didn't want to be rude and interrupt him. So I let him go through his spiel. And he got done. And he's like, all right, so are you ready to go back? I'm like, well, you see, Doc, the thing is this.
I got this thing to do.
I'm going to go open for Great White at the Crystal Grand, one of the biggest music venues in Wisconsin, on Saturday. So unless you want to see my skinny little white ass hitchhiking up Highway 12 in a hospital gown to get to that show, what do you think we maybe push this off till next week, Tuesday?
Yeah. That's awesome. And I mean, right now, things are looking all right with as far as the cancer diagnosis, right? So.
Yeah, like, well, and you know, before we get to that part of it, like
Yeah.
thinking about it, imagine going to play a show, and we had a great crowd that night. We had 1,300 people in the venue.
Right.
But imagine finding out, like, let's see, that was Tuesday, so Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Finding out that, and then 4 days later, going out in front of 1,300 people and playing what you might think in your mind might be the last show you ever play before you die. And it's like, man, so like there's an anxiety there, right? Like, oh man, like what's going to happen? Like, I don't want to stumble now, but you're thinking like, man, I might die here. This might be it. So it adds a layer of tension. Like, we went out there and had an amazing show, and I didn't really even know that there was that many people there because the stage lights are so bright. I could only see about 3 or 4 rows back. So I had no idea. When we got done with the set, they flipped all the lights on as we were walking off stage, and I looked. That place was full all the way to the back and half of the upper deck. And I was glad that I couldn't see back that far, because if I'd have known all those people were there, I'd have been freaking out. So that worked out good.
Right.
As far as the cancer diagnosis, getting back to where we were, they gave me the chop, and I had cancer at the intersection of my small intestine and colon. And I'd been having some stomach pain issues, and I had a CT scan where they actually missed my tumor. So it sat there cooking in me for 3 extra years, which fortunately I'm very health conscious, and I lift a lot of weights. I have a super clean diet. I take very, very good care of myself. And I think that's what didn't allow that tumor to grow very fast.
Awesome.
So that's the good part about it. The bad part about it is I had a very rare genetic form of cancer. It was a neuroendocrine tumor, which is like 1 in, 100,000. So basically what that means is it's not treatable. My tumor isn't, or what, the one that they cut out of me, but the ones that my body will create, it'll just create them, is not treatable by chemotherapy or radiation. It's surgical only. So if that tumor comes back on me somewhere they can't cut it off me, I'll die. And so where I'm sitting is I got to get scanned every 6 months and CT scan. And if I come back clean, well, that's good. If they find something, they either got to cut it off me, or if it like starts on my brain, well, then I'm done. Or the one thing I thought I was off the hook at, I'm like, well, this is really slow growing style tumor. Like, I'll be fine, right? I could stretch this out 3 years and do a little bit more stuff. Well, the oncologist told me, well, see, there's 2 types of neuroendocrine tumors too. There's fast growing and slow growing. So if you get this thing, you could get, like, if a fast growing one comes back, you could be dead in 6 months. So when I tell people I'm living 6 months at a crack, I am. That's where I'm at right now. So I'm out of the woods right now and in the clear, but I'm a scan away from going right back to hell. So
yeah. But
it's driving me forward, Keith. I'll tell you that.
Awesome. Yeah.
I could sit around and cry about things or feel, and I'm going to be like fully honest with you and just disclose this to you.
Yeah.
When I first got home from the hospital, probably the first 3 to 5 days, I did feel sorry for myself, and I'm embarrassed about this. I'm like, man, how could this happen to me? Like, I've been training really hard, and I took care of, I'm not somebody who doesn't take care of himself. Like, what's going on here? Like, why am I getting struck down with this? But then I saw this commercial for St. Jude's Hospital. Like, and there's just all these kids who have had cancer. And I thought about that, and it made me feel embarrassed a little bit inside. I'm like, oh my God, dude, you fought people in rings. You opened for national touring bands. You recorded original albums. Like, you did all these things in your life. You had a really good life, and there's kids out there that are dying that'll never experience any of those things, and you're feeling sorry for yourself. And man, that tore me down like deep inside. And I'm like, I'm never gonna feel sorry. Like they will say, I've never seen a wild thing sorry for itself. A bird could sit frozen and dead on a bough and will have never felt sorry for itself. And so that's what straightened me out a little bit, man. I thought about that a little bit. I'm not going to feel sorry for myself. How dare I? Like, I got nothing to be sorry about. You know what? If you go, you go. But I'm a rocket ship, brother. You know what I mean? I'm a meteorite. I'm a comet flying across the sky. And so are you and everybody else. And if you were there and you saw it, great. And you know what? If you were too lazy to come out or you didn't care, it didn't matter, then guess what? Don't come back later and say, oh, well, I could have, wish I could have. You could have.
Yeah.
You either saw it or you didn't.
I don't. Yeah.
You know, it's one time through. And that's what shows are. That's what pro wrestling matches are.
Yeah.
Every match is different. People know, oh, it's the same match every night. No, it ain't. And it ain't. It's the same set list it ain't. Even if it's the same set list, that is not the same show.
Right.
Every show is unique. Things that happen, things that people do, even if it's exactly the same set list performed by the exact same people, things happen that are different at each show.
Yep.
And that's what makes the memories, man, is going out and like being a part of that. Otherwise, you know, you can watch a video of it, but you know what? You weren't there.
Yeah.
And it's never quite the same as like being there, right?
Yeah, for sure, man. For sure. All right, so I didn't expect this interview to get so emotional, man, but
hey, it's okay.
Yeah.
That's what life is about, Keith. It's about emotion. That's what music is about, because that's where it comes from. And when it's good, it comes from the heart, right?
Yeah.
Because you're going to be gone someday. I'm going to be gone.
Yeah.
How do you want to be remembered? Do you want to be remembered like you did something cool for somebody? Or like, I want to be remembered as like, that guy was the craziest son of a bitch I ever met. But he was so cool and he would do anything for everybody. And that's why we loved him.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
And that's that.
Yeah, for sure, bro. All right, man. So let's look at the future, man.
The future?
Yeah. What do you got going on? Where are you going from here, brother?
Well, I don't know, man. It's hard to say what the future is, what we make it, right? The old Terminator line, the future is what we make it.
Yeah.
I want to keep writing and creating music. I want to try to travel a little bit further away from Wisconsin now and perform and meet new people like that. You know, that's one thing about our band that has really surprised me a lot is as time has gone and music has gone out there, the messages I've got from people are probably things that mean the most to me. You know, and it could be even from strangers like, hey, man, I was really depressed and I heard your song in my darkest hour. And, you know, because of you today, I didn't give up. And I think that, you know, I might be able to continue this journey of life. And which is why we wrote that song, why I wrote the lyrics I did to it, because I had my own depression issues from getting divorced and thinking that nothing would ever, you know, nothing's ever going to work out for me. And I still sometimes think about this today as a musician. Sometimes in my heart, I feel like I don't think that anything that I ever did will ever like matter to anybody other than me. And that's a lie, you know, but that's the lie that we all tell ourselves, right? Like, what did I ever do in this life? Well, you can affect people in such a profound way and through music that you may have never even met them and altered the course of their history forever. And that's something that, like, wow, man, what an awesome thing. What a great gift. What a great pleasure to be a part of it.
Oh, brother, I appreciate you coming on and talking with me. This has been so cool. I think we're going to wrap the podcast up on that note.
Yeah.
It's a good note to end on, man. So
I agree, man. And, you know, if you want to get together again, we could talk about more like pro wrestling stuff or martial arts stuff, because
Definitely,
Man, I
man.
really do love martial arts. Like martial arts is
Well,
something
we
that
didn't touch
saved
on the
my life.
martial arts as much as I thought we were gonna, but
Yeah, I mean, there's so many other avenues of things we can talk about. And
yeah, for sure,
we can
brother.
do that. We can do that for another time, right? Like, or
Yeah,
talk about
definitely.
more stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we've been going now for almost an hour, so it's man.
Oh,
So yeah, but I appreciate you coming on, man. And I always want to thank Tyler Martin and ME Studios. I couldn't do this without him. Um, he's the technical guy, and I just sit here and talk and listen. So if
thanks,
there's
Tyler.
anything,
I appreciate you doing all this stuff for me and Keith.
yeah,
It's awesome that you were able to be a part of this and help us to do something cool. And this is how people remember this moment in time. Maybe they can glean something from this or learn something from this that will help them in their journey.
man, I was engaged. I was fully engaged in this conversation, man. So hopefully
Yeah,
other
me
people will
too,
too.
dude.
Yeah, hopefully other people will too. It's
I'm
a good
glad. Like,
time.
this was a good time to hop off. Otherwise, like, we'd be here 2 or 3 hours
Yeah,
later,
we
and then
still
you'd have
going.
to ask me, like, Mickey,
Yeah,
does your train of thought have a caboose? I'm like, I don't know.
it's fucking simple. All right, brother. Is there anything you want to plug real quick before we go, or
No, man. I just want to tell you thanks, Keith, for everything, and that I appreciate you,
appreciate you.
man. I love you, and stick
Love
and
you too,
move,
man.
buddy. Keep your head on a swivel, bob and weave, and don't let them get you, man.
Yeah, brother. All right, thanks, brother.
All right, I'll see you.
All right, later, brother.
Take care.